Welcome to today's live stream. It's Tobey here from JazzMentl. Thanks for joining me. Now, if you're coming here for the first time, you should know that we haven't really started promoting these live streams yet. We do have a mailing list and subscribers on YouTube. Just kind of a soft launch thing. I think this is the third week that we do this live stream on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think we're going to continue with that time because it's a good time for me. So just make a note that we're probably going to be live streaming and it's a good idea to turn my mic on. You see, that's why we're not promoting things, because I forget things and things aren't as smooth as they could always be. So once again, welcome to the live stream. It's Tobey here. We are going to start live streaming every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hopefully you can make it. We'll start to let the mailing list know. We'll start to let the YouTube subscribers know. And basically what I wanted to do, yes, Mark, thanks for the point. My mic is now on. I appreciate that. Thanks for hanging out with me. And of course, Mark Eisenman, for those of you that don't know, and I didn't expect Mark to be here. For those of you that don't know, Mark is a colleague of mine in Toronto, Ontario. I'm actually in Niagara-on-the-Lake now, but I've known Mark for many years. Fantastic jazz piano player, and welcome to the group. I have just started these live streams a couple of weeks ago, and we plan to run them pretty much every Saturday. I'm going to share some ideas on tunes. We're going to take user questions and user suggestions. And what happened for this particular one was I posted a video on the Jazz Pianist group on Facebook yesterday. And if you don't know that group, you should really be a member of it. I know Mark and I are members of it. You can put a link. I put a link in the description for this video, and you can find it down below the video. When it renders after we're done, then I can put the link up in the corner, but not until it's done. So if it's up in the corner now, it's because you're watching a repeat, a previously recorded live stream. So we are live right now. Any questions that you have, you can post them in the chat area. Just a couple of things on what's happening with me this week. There's a lot going on, actually. I have decided, and many of you know this who've been following the YouTube channel and who've been on the Facebook group, that I've decided to relaunch an album. Now, it's very different than we used to do. I think my wife brought me a copy of, I'm going to hold this up. So this is the last album that I actually released. It was on Arcadia, which is a fairly large independent record label in New York. And that was released back in 2001. So that's the last album that I ever put out. And it was, fairly successful. It got nominated for a Juno Award, which many people don't know what that is, but it's kind of like the Grammys of Canada. And then a bunch of things happened, not the least of which I blew up my arms with tendinitis and stuff. So I just kind of left the music business and went and did a whole bunch of other things, business. But I've decided at this stage in my life that if I'm going to re-release another album or do a new album, then I better do it now before it's too late. But I think, better late than never. What I've learned through this process is a lot. We cannot do what we used to do, like we did with Street Culture, that album. We can't stuff a bunch of envelopes and send them off to radio stations and hope for the best. It doesn't really work like that. And by the way, hey, Martin from Scotland, appreciate it. Thanks for writing Scotland in there, because I always get confused. What was I saying? We have to do a whole bunch of different things now. So we have to release a single a month for the next 3 months before the album even comes out. We've hired 2 publicists and a whole bunch of other stuff, like these 20-day launch sequences that we have to do. There's advertising, and the goal, I guess, is Spotify plays. So we have no idea if it's going to work. The music is recorded. I actually went into the studio this week to mix a couple of songs, and then we sent them off to Nashville for mastering. I've received the first copy single, which is Over the Rainbow. I've received that back, and it's now completely mastered, and it sounds good. I've actually played it on my home stereo, and that's going to come out soon. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to ask some of you who are on the mailing list to actually pre-save it, which means that when it actually launches on Spotify, it's pre-saved by you, so it'll automatically notify you to go and watch it. The whole goal of this thing, of course, is Spotify plays. And why do we need that? It's not for the money, I can tell you that. It's basically just promotion to help get a couple of gigs. And I have no big aspirations of doing world tours or anything like that. I did it one time, but I'm a little later in life now, so maybe, you know, I'm thinking 5 or 10 concerts a year. I did a couple last year, and they were both sold out, which was really nice. And so just kind of up our game in that area. One of the things that I found really interesting about this whole launch process for new music is, as I mentioned, completely changed, but it's really about social media. It's about getting it in front of as many eyeballs as possible. Now, the good news is that we're starting with a fair amount of subscribers here on YouTube and growing pretty quickly, thanks to you. We're growing right now at about 700-800 subscribers a month. Plus 10% next month, plus 10% the month after that. So we hope to be at like 25,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That's a pretty significant audience, and I have you all to thank for that. So thanks for listening, because our whole goal here is to be better at this thing we call the piano. And just for those jazz players that don't play the piano, better at bass, better at drums, better at everything. And I don't know everything. I only know what I know from experience, and I share as much as I can on this channel with you, which brings us to today's topic, which is basically I'm going to relearn a couple of tunes that I used to know that I actually haven't played, and the reason why I'm doing that is because somebody requested them. What was his name? Hang on a second. I'll have to get you a name. It was Bonnie Mann. Thank you for the requests. Hopefully you're here. If you're here, let me know in the chat area that you're here, because I know you jumped in on the Facebook group and said that you're here or you were going to come. So if you're here, just let me know in the chat area. And he requested 2 tunes, When Sunny Gets Blue and Autumn in New York. Now, I got to be completely like open and honest about this thing. I pulled up the lead sheets, and that's how we're going to learn this tune together, basically this morning, and looked them over for like 5 minutes. So I'm not coming into this completely fresh, and I used to play them a long time ago, but I really haven't played them since. So we're going to learn them together, which is kind of fun, and I'll let you in on some ideas on how I actually relearn tunes or learn them for the first time. So let me pull up the sheet music first. I think I've got it ready here to go. PDF? Yes, there you go. Now, the first thing I noticed is that both tunes are in the key of F. So what we're going to do is probably change one of them to a different key just to kind of learn some new things, because every time you play something in a different key, you learn different ways of voicing. There's things that you do in that key that you don't do in other keys, and it just sometimes sounds better. And so when we run through the tune, I'm going to perhaps change the key on us just to kind of get some new ideas. So and I do that quite often, by the way. I play some things in the key of that is the key that it's written in, but you never know. Like, artists do tunes in different keys all the time, so who knows what the actual original key was. I only know what's in the real book, and basically, I like to change the key up as much as possible because I get different sounds. So the first thing that I do is basically just skim through the tune, try to remember as much as I can, put in some pretty standard or basic voicings just to learn the tune, get it under my fingers a little bit, and then start the kind of reharm process. So let's just run through it quickly and let's see how it goes. I've already got an idea for that. Anytime I see, and let's make sure my microphone's on. Anytime, yes it is, that I see anything like a scale, I'm thinking 6 diminished in my head. And so if we were to actually do that right now, play an F6 chord, and we're on bar 3, and then every other chord is a diminished chord. And I'll probably get the left hand involved too. It's a good opportunity for Bill Evans type things when he plays arpeggios. When there's an arpeggio like that, sometimes what you can do is you can emanate that in the left hand, but use different notes of the arpeggio. So for example, this one is kind of like first inversion, right? So this is root, and then this is kind of first inversion, even though it uses a B flat in there. Kind of play the other one in the root. So kind of a neat sound. Try that again. Whoa. Right. Right, so a very rough go through. And then even before I start working out things, I might switch the key at this point, but I'm not that comfortable with it yet. I think it's going to sound a little nicer if we go down a bit. I don't know. Let me just check. Right. So I just changed keys back into F for a second. Okay. Okay. So I threw out a couple of ideas, right? The first one was this Bill Evans thing. And I think it's important to get the left hand involved more than just roots and what do you call those? Like chords when you're just playing root and seventh and things like that. They're like, can't remember the name of it, but whatever. Get the left hand involved. You know, play some lines, things like that. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really sound that great in F. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work it through in E flat. Now this is a great exercise for anybody who wants to because I'm not one of those players who plays gigs. I don't go out, get calls to gigs. I used to, a long time ago. But essentially what I do is work out a tune for recording, for an album, or for a concert, things like that. So I'm not keeping an arsenal of 1,000 songs in my head, although by ear I can probably pull out 1,000 songs. It might not be that great, but essentially when I'm working over a tune, I like to pick a key for that tune kind of early on. And to me, it kind of sounds like E flat is going to be a better key. So let's see if we can kind of work it through in E flat. Gonna need to do that again. Let's go from the bridge. You have to be careful when you're changing keys. It's actually fairly simple to move like a whole tone from F to E flat, but you have to be careful because your brain just kind of slips back into the key that it's written in for whatever reason. And I've done that a few times already, but we'll keep working at it. And then once I kind of have the changes in my head, I keep glancing at it a little bit. I like it better in this key, so I'm going to keep it here. And then what I might do is just kind of start the beginning stages of improv, trying to find new ways of voicing left-hand chords in amongst little melodies in the right hand. See how that goes. I forgot where I am here. Do, 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 do. Okay. Yeah, it's a different ending. So, I think force works well there. And I'm looking at the shell voicings. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. If you're still here, I appreciate you hanging out with me today. In fact, Mark, at some point, I'd love you to, I don't know, work something where we can do something together. I can grill you on your stuff, and you can, I don't know, ask me questions about my stuff if you need to know anything about what I'm doing. We can sort of like share some ideas with this audience if you're willing to do that sometime. I'd appreciate that. Let me know. So that's When Sunny Gets Blue. Now, I would like to say that if you have any questions and you're watching the recording of this versus the live version, because I don't know how many of us are here at the moment, but if you're watching the recording, you can still put questions. You just put them below the video in the comments area, and I'll see if I can respond to them there. No, not see. I will respond to them. We're pretty good about that here on the JazzMentl channel. We're responding as much as we can for sure on the user questions and the subscriber questions. Okay. I think if I have any parting comments on When Sunny Gets Blue, it's that, one, I prefer it in E flat. It just kind of seems to fit a little bit. There's some interesting things about it in that when you've got the root and the melody as the same note, it creates kind of a few problems for voicings. For example, right off the bat, you can see, I mean, that's the root. If it's in F, and so what you have to do is you kind of figure out something, because it's a bit low. So what you might do is move it up an octave so then you can use more voicing in the left hand, because if it gets too busy, then it doesn't work. It's always about finding the best voicing for the melody, especially, obviously, when you're playing the tune. So you can put in more notes. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Mark, do you have a suggestion, if you're still here, on what to do there? So you have to kind of keep an eye on those things, right? It's like I said, it's always about finding the best voicing to work with the melody. If the melody is the root and it's very low, your options are limited. So maybe just move things up an octave a little bit. Remember, this is about solo piano playing. This is not really pertaining to like playing with the trio. If you're playing with the trio, obviously you can move it up octaves because you've got a bass player going. Doesn't sound that great, solo piano, obviously. But if you have a bass player, it kind of changes things, right? But if you're playing solo piano, it's kind of like you got to cover the left hand chords as rich as possible. You get too high on the piano, things start to sound really thin when you don't have a bass player. Okay. Let's move on to Autumn in New York. We've got about 20 minutes or so to kind of go through Autumn in New York. Let me change the tune here. Okay. So now with Autumn in New York, we now have the opportunity to play a little more in F, it looks like. It might be a little harder for me to transpose this one. I'm not as familiar with this one as I am with When Sunny Gets Blue, even though I haven't played many of them, even though I haven't played them for many years. It's still, I remember the tune for When Sunny Gets Blue a little easier. So a lot of times when I'm transposing, I'll just find what I think works based on what my ear hears. Whereas this, I'm really less familiar. So let's, again, just play it through, use some shell voicings as Mark pointed out, kind of stick to the chords that are written here, and we'll see how that goes. We're definitely going to have to work on that. It's an E natural. Maybe line cliche? So we can borrow that idea from the other tune where we're playing arpeggios. It's kind of an arpeggio, kind of like first inversion of G minor, and then play the root version in the left hand or something like that. I kind of like that. could stagger them too. And then once we get it kind of under our fingers, start to add a little bit of swing to it, because that changes things, changes the way that your fingers move and find chord progressions. So let's try it with a little bit of swing. It's interesting, the melody doesn't lend itself easily to voicing, so we have to figure things out a little bit. It's interesting, it's blues really. So you have to think blues scale, right? So Mark says, here's a simple change from what's written in the original key. Second chord, bar 1, try A minor instead of C7. Is that for, because it's already written A minor in the second chord in bar 1, at least in this chart. Okay. Is it originally C7? I like A minor. Yeah, okay. Well, I think that brings this session to a close. It was great hanging out with you. Obviously, I'm just kind of learning these tunes myself, and they were requested by Bonnie Mann from the Jazz Pianist group. I put a link to the Jazz Pianist group if you're not a member of that. It's a great group to be. I know that Mark Eisenman and myself, who's in the chat area, are also members. So is Martin Waugh from Scotland, also a member. And it's just a great place to be if you have any questions. And of course, there's a bunch of group admins and experts. I'm not one of them, who basically answers all of your questions and provides some guidance. So that's a great place to be. And of course, here on the JazzMentl channel, there's a couple of things that I request from you. First, if you would like to subscribe to the channel and you're not a member, just hit the subscribe button and we would love to have you. Any comments or questions, just put them below now. I'm going to sign off, and of course, without it being live, there won't be any chat going on. But just put the questions in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you with a response. I know Martin says he's in a bad reception area in the chat area. It's been dipping in and out, so we'll catch on replay. So cheers to Martin and Mark and a few others who've been hanging out with us in the chat area. There's probably a few others online. It's just they haven't written anything in the chat. And we're going to start live streaming every Saturday, 11 a.m. So you can count on that from now on. If I miss a Saturday, I will probably either pre-record something or put something at a different time, but I'll let you know. If you haven't subscribed to the JazzMentl.com channel, go to JazzMentl.com. There's lots of free sheet music downloads there, and we do lots of tutorials there as well. Subscribe there, and if you're on our mailing list, we'll certainly let you know of any upcoming events, including this live stream, Saturdays, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time.